Commerce Alive today presents
JCPenney. James Cash Penney started his first retail store in 1902 in Kemmerer, Wyoming, a small mining town. He was 26 years old and had grown up on a farm near Hamilton, Missouri. 2 years after graduating from high school, Penney went to work for a local retailer, J.M. Hale. Penney's health suffered while he was in the Midwest, and his doctor advised him to move to the cooler climate of Colorado. After several ups and downs in Longmont, Colorado, Penney started working for the Golden Rule Mercantile Company, a dry goods retailer founded by T.M. Callahan. Callahan soon promoted young Penney to his Evanston, Wyoming, store to work with one of his partners, Guy Johnson. Penney put in 3 years as a salesman, and Callahan and Johnson decided to make him a manager and partner. Penney chose to open his first Golden Rule store in Kemmerer because many of his Evanston customers lived there. The local banker cautioned Penney against opening a cash-only store, as 3 others had failed in Kemmerer, but Penney didn't want to accept mining company scrip or credit. Penney invested his whole savings, $500, and had to borrow $1,500 to be the third partner, with Callahan and Johnson, in the Kemmerer store. Penney's instinct proved correct. The store had $28,898 in sales its first year. In 1907, Callahan and Johnson dissolved their partnership, and Penney bought them out, taking over 3 stores. He implemented the principles of his former partners and expanded the chain throughout the Rocky Mountains by allowing his store managers to buy a 1/3 partnership in new stores, provided they had a trained salesperson to take their place as manager at the old store. He established a central buying and accounting office in Salt Lake City, Utah, in 1909, and had 34 stores with more than $2 million in sales by 1912. In 1913, Penney incorporated the company as JCPenney Company Incorporated and moved the corporate headquarters to New York City to be closer to manufacturers and suppliers. By 1915, the company had 83 stores, and the next year ventured east of the Mississippi River for the first time with stores in Wausau and Watertown, Wisconsin. Penney became chairman of the board in 1917, when the company had 175 stores, and Earl Sams became president. The company continued to open stores at a fast clip. Private label brands were a major reason for the success of the company. Customers liked them because of controlled quality and cheaper prices than brand names. Penney liked them because he could control the price and make a higher profit margin. Belle Isle, Ramona, Honor Brand, and Nationwide were private label names for piece goods. And Big Mac, Waverly, and Ladylike were labels on work shirts, men's caps, and lingerie, respectively. During the next several years, the company's growth was explosive. As Penney's personal wealth increased, so did his charity. Though he had quietly been giving thousands of dollars to local churches and organizations, in 1923 he founded Penney Farms, a 120,000-acre experimental farming area in northern Florida for down-on-their-luck farmers. In 1925, when the company's 674 stores generated sales of $91 million, Penney was again giving some of his good fortune back, this time in establishing the JCPenney Foundation to fund a myriad of family-related agencies. The next year, when the company opened an 18-story office and warehouse building in New York, Penney went back to Florida and built the Memorial Home Community, a 60-acre residential tract for retired ministers, church workers, and missionaries, adjacent to Penney Farms. The 25th anniversary was celebrated in 1927, and founder James Cash Penney declared that the company had a good shot at achieving sales of $1 billion by its 50th anniversary in 1952. The company's managers and executives, who had equity in individual stores they ran or oversaw, traded their ownership for a stake in the company as a whole. In 1929, the company was listed on the New York Stock Exchange. When the Great Depression hit, the company coped by cutting back its inventory and trying to purchase goods at lower prices so it could pass the price cuts on to customers. The company survived the hard times largely because it had become known for its high-quality goods and service, and people turned to JCPenney for the basic items they needed. The company's profits even increased during the Depression, and by 1936 sales rose to $250 million, and the number of stores grew to 1,496. In 1962, JCPenney got into the mail-order business for the first time by buying General Merchandise Company, a Wisconsin firm with a discount store operation as well. JCPenney was different from many of its competitors with its late entry into the catalog mail-order business. Other big retailers started in mail-order and then launched into retail stores. JCPenney created the Treasury discount stores from the General Merchandise discount operation. The next year, it mailed its first JCPenney catalog. In 8 states, customers could order from the catalog from inside JCPenney stores. A Milwaukee distribution center supplied the goods. The company's first full-line stores, with all the new merchandise lines instituted by President Batten, opened in 1963 in Audubon, New Jersey, and King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. They were prototypes for the JCPenney stores of the next 2 decades. The company needed bigger headquarters because it had grown significantly in 38 years. It built a 45-story office in New York in 1964, where the company stayed until its later move to Dallas. At the same time, Batten became the company's 4th chairman, and beauty salons, portrait studios, food facilities, and auto service centers were added to full-line stores. Sales topped $3 billion in 1968. In 1969, the company added an Atlanta, Georgia, catalog distribution center and purchased Thrift Drug Company. 2 years later, when James Cash Penney died at age 95, sales for the company he founded hit $5 billion, and the catalog business made a profit for the first time. Able to take advantage of the fact that disposable income in the U.S. was rising faster than inflation, JCPenney reached its highest number of stores in 1973, with 2,053 stores, 300 of which were full-line establishments. Donald Seibert was elected 5th chairman of the board and CEO in 1974. The same year, a 3rd catalog distribution center was opened in Columbus, Ohio. The company offered, and sold, 3 million shares of common stock in 1975, and Sesame Street joined JCPenney's fold by signing an exclusive licensing agreement for children's wear. While the company was riding high on these achievements, the recession that began in 1974 took its toll. JCPenney's stock plunged from a high of $51 a share to $17. Earnings dropped from $185.8 million to $125.1 million. Investors believed low-margin items like appliances were squeezing profits, and that discount and self-service home center stores were doing a better job than JCPenney in the hardware business. The advent and strong growth of the specialty apparel store also meant tough competition for JCPenney. Like other businesses, JCPenney rebounded and had good growth in 1975, but its executives began to suspect the company needed to be restructured. Walter Knepple became president in 1976, and the company launched its women's fashion program in 5 markets, designed to help the company compete against specialty stores cropping up in malls. A 4th catalog distribution center, in Lenexa, Kansas, was added in 1978. By then, sales had grown to $10.8 billion, the women's fashion program was introduced in new markets, and a home furnishings line was added. As a 5th distribution center was added in 1979, in Reno, Nevada, the catalog service went nationwide. Sales of the service surpassed $1 billion, making the company the 2nd largest catalog merchandiser in the United States. To continue expanding the credit policies of the company, JCPenney began accepting Visa in 1979, MasterCard was accepted the next year. The company closed the Treasury discount stores in 1980 because they were unprofitable and decided to focus resources on its JCPenney stores. In 1981, when the company's sales totaled $11.9 billion, JCPenney was the first to sell zero-coupon bonds in domestic public markets. It also reorganized its executive structure around the office of the chairman. Seibert remained chairman, Nepal moved to the new vice chairmanship, and William Howell was made an executive vice president. With these officers in place, the company launched a massive reorganization to transform the company from a mass merchant into a national department store. It would take almost a decade to achieve the goals outlined in the JCPenney store's positioning statement, issued in 1982. The company's first order of business was to expand the fashion programs in men's, women's, and children's departments, and the company divided its stores into two categories, metropolitan and geographic. A sixth catalog distribution center was also opened in 1982, in Manchester, Connecticut. With the $14 million remodeling of its key store in Atlanta, JCPenney rolled out the prototype of its latest store design. Atlanta was only the beginning. In 1983, JCPenney announced a $1 billion program to give its stores facelifts and rearrange merchandise. Apparel, home furnishings, and leisure lines would be emphasized, and auto service, hard-line appliances, paint, hardware, lawn and garden merchandise. And fabrics were phased out. Its big mass merchant competitors, Montgomery Ward and Sears, continued in these lines. Retail analysts who followed JCPenney called the company's decision difficult but necessary. These lines provided $1.5 billion in annual sales, but were keeping the company from positioning itself as a true department store. In addition, low-margin goods were preventing the company from making its profit potential. In 1983, Howell, who most recently held a vice chairmanship, was elected the sixth chairman of the board, and David Miller was named president. The company also introduced a communications system for broadcasting directly to its stores using satellite transmissions from headquarters. Merchandise buyers from the home office could show store managers, salespeople, and local buyers what merchandise was available, and the local employees could help select what goods would likely sell in their stores. This gave the company the cost-saving advantages of being centralized, but also allowed it to be sensitive to fashion and seasonal preferences in local markets. Thrift drug, long dormant since JCPenney purchased it, scored some big points in 1984, when several major industrial companies became mail-order pharmacy customers. Also in 1984, JCPenney purchased the First National Bank of Harrington, Delaware, and renamed it JCPenney National Bank, to assist in credit and financial services. The company began accepting American Express cards as well as Visa, MasterCard, and JCPenney credit cards, and the bank was issuing its own Visas and MasterCards. Thrift drug celebrated its 50th anniversary in 1985. JCPenney's total year-end sales hit $13.6 billion. In 1986, JCPenney acquired Units, a chain of stores selling contemporary knitwear, and by the next year the company was well on its way to achieving the goals it set forth in 1982. Moving its corporate headquarters to just outside Dallas, Texas, JCPenney was able to cut $60 million from its annual budget, although about 1,250 New Yorkers lost their jobs. JCPenney's president, David Miller, added vice chairman and COO to his titles, and the company began focusing on four major merchandising groups by dividing them into separate business divisions: women's, men's, children's, and home and leisure. By the end of 1986, there were 1,482 JCPenney stores dotting the country, about to undergo a major change. In 1987, the company discontinued sales of home electronics, hard sporting goods, and photo equipment in its stores. The space that became available was then used for women's apparel. Also in the late 1980s, JCPenney opened freestanding furniture stores, called Portfolio, on an experimental basis. The company's 5 regional operations were narrowed to 4 in 1988 to make communication between merchandising divisions and stores easier. The company also launched a massive leveraged employee stock ownership plan in 1988. With its new stance as a national department store focusing on apparel, the company had benefited from its prime regional shopping center space, the most such space of all U.S. retailers. Shoppers at regional malls were there to buy clothes and accessories, not washing machines and paint, and JCPenney was poised to take better advantage of these spending habits. Earnings rebounded as a result, rising from $4.11 per share in 1987 to $5.92 in 1988 from total sales of $14.8 billion. In 1989, JCPenney was named the U.S.'s exclusive distributor for Olympic apparel, sold its JCPenney Casualty Insurance Company, and debuted the JCPenney television shopping channel. The company was not, however, immune to the intense competition and promotional atmosphere of late 1989 and early 1990, and earnings slipped slightly to $5.86 per share on sales of $16.1 billion in 1989. In 1990, Miller retired and Vice Chairman Gill took on the former's responsibilities as COO of JCPenney Stores and Catalog Service. The company also broke ground for its new corporate headquarters in Plano, Texas, just north of Dallas, winnowed its stores down to 1,328 by closing underperforming outlets, and moved away from some of its private labels, focusing instead on major brand names like Hager, HealthTex, Jockey, Levi Strauss Company, Maidenform, Ocean Pacific, Oshkosh, Reebok, Van Heusen, and Warner's. Earnings for 1990 fell to $4.33 per share from overall revenue of nearly $17.4 billion, slowed by the uncertainty over the Persian Gulf and the coming recession. The next year, the full brunt of the recession and the Gulf War hit consumers and JCPenney rather hard. Retail sales fell from 1990's nearly $16.4 billion to $16.2 billion, but income and per-share earnings nosedived. While the company responded to a shaky economy and adjusted its retail businesses accordingly, its insurance division far outshined other operations with a pre-tax income surge of 44% from 1990's $55 million to $79 million in 1991. To the relief of shareholders and management alike, JCPenney rebounded in 1992 while celebrating its 90th anniversary. After relocating to its new headquarters in Plano, the company was rewarded with replenished catalog sales, record performances from JCPenney Insurance and JCPenney National Bank, retail sales of $18 billion, and a net income hike of $777 million with an ROE leap of 18.6% over 1991. Further, James E. Osterreicher was named president and Gill retired after 39 years with the company. JCPenney's continued concentration on women who accounted for 80% of apparel sales and on whose behalf each store now allocated up to 41% of its space was paying off. Coupled with a contemporary and fashion-forward environment, sales rose substantially in 1992 and 1993, due to a revitalized Worthington Career Collection and the debut and ongoing success of new bath and body products. Another proprietary brand, the original Arizona Jean Company, soared in earnings to $400 million from the previous year's $90 million. A hip redesign of the Plain Pockets line, Arizona quickly eclipsed JCPenney's expectations, prompting a slew of additional designs in different sizes and colors. On the heels of these triumphs came a 2-for-1 stock split in March 1993, a new advertising campaign reflecting the company's invigorated stance, year-end retail sales just shy of $19 billion, an income of $940 million due in part to stronger catalog sales of $3.5 billion. The next year, 1994, JCPenney was still riding the crest of its Arizona wave and introduced Little Arizona denim wear for toddlers. The continued hoopla over the brand's success had even prompted longtime rival Sears to jump into the proprietary denim fray with its own line, Canyon River Blues. Everyone, by now, from consumers to analysts, took note of JCPenney's extraordinary turnaround. Figures for 1994 further demonstrated the company's achievement, with $20.4 billion in retail sales, a 6.8% comparative store sales increase, and net income topping $1 billion. This year also found Oostenrijker promoted to vice chairman and CEO, W. Barger Tigert named president, and Howell in his 11th year as chairman. In 1995, JCPenney's recovery lost its momentum, falling short of both its own and analysts' expectations. Retail sales increased only 0.9% for the year. Income fell from 1994's outstanding $1 billion to $838 million, and comparative store sales experienced a 1.4% drop. Accentuating the positive, the company announced that its gift registry had already signed up 125,000 registrants and planned to hit 250,000 by the end of 1996, while another new venture in home furnishings opened 4 new stores in 1995 with plans for another 20 locations on the drawing board. Yet regardless of JCPenney's retail store performance, its lesser-known businesses, comprised of its drugstore chain, insurance, and banking services divisions, scored rather well for the year. Thrift Drug, the 10th largest drugstore chain in the nation with 645 stores in 12 states, had sales of nearly $1.9 billion in '95 and plans for new outlets in North Carolina and New Jersey. The Insurance Group, which began reciprocal businesses services in 1990 and moved into Canada in 1992, ran up revenues of $697 million, a 22.1% leap from 1994's $571 million, while JCPenney National Bank's revenues grew 21.7% from $131 million to $160 million with 470,000 active Visa and MasterCard accounts and receivables of $823 million. In 1996, the company moved in several directions to regain the footing lost in 1995, allocated $2.1 billion in capital expenditures over the next 3 years to open 100 new domestic stores and refurbish 500, expanded its international presence through varied licensing agreements, and announced plans to acquire the Eckerd drugstore chain for a combination of cash and stock. To retain its claim as the U.S.'s largest department store, especially with old foe Sears pounding on the door, JCPenney's executives turned up the heat with more private label brands and, oddly enough, coffee. The former included Zons, an Arizona offshoot for teens, and new additions to its menswear collection. The latter concerned a joint venture with the coffee group of Costa Mesa to install JC Java coffee bars in 800 of its stores, beginning with a handful in Orange Country, California in the fall of 1997. Although Bloomingdale's has had restaurants in their stores for decades and upstart Nordstrom had coffee bars, was the concept still new enough to attract more customers to JCPenney? Oostenrijker and his management team certainly hoped so, because after all JCPenney was supposed to be doing it right. 1998, JCPenney launched its first internet retail site, which has since grown to be one of the largest online retailers, which by 2005 had $1 billion in annual sales. In 2011, the website came under fire, being accused of search engine results manipulation, which resulted in highest rankings on Google searches. After a media storm, in which JCPenney denied any knowledge of manipulation, they fired the search engine optimization firm it had hired to get the results. JCPenney left Chile in 1999. After 5 years in the country, it closed down its home store and sold its main store in Santiago to Almacen's Paris. The stores were closed due to low profitability and high expenses. In early 2001, JCPenney closed 44 underperforming stores. In 2001, JCPenney sold its direct marketing insurance unit to Dutch insurer Aegon for $1.3 billion in cash to help refocus the company on retail. In 2003, the company opened 3 stores in strip centers in Texas, Minnesota, and Indiana. The new single-level, 94,000 square foot store format focuses on convenience, with wider aisles and centralized checkouts. In 2004, the company added 14 more stores and exited the drugstore division after 35 years, with the sale of its Eckerd division. The company also sold its 6 Mexico stores to Grupo Carso, which rebranded 5 of the stores as Dorian's and the other one as Sears Mexico. In 2005, JCPenney's e-commerce storefront exceeded the $1 billion revenue mark for the first time. At the same time in June, the company would sell off its shares of Lojas Renner, the Brazilian-based retailer, generating $260 million from the sale as it discontinued its operations with Renner and its Latin American footholds as well. In 2007, JCPenney launched the Ambrielle lingerie label, which became its largest private brand launched in the company's history. JCPenney also reintroduced cosmetics with the opening of Sephora stores within a store, inside some JCPenney locations. Beginning in 2007, JCPenney's store slogan changed from "It's all inside" to "Everyday Matters." The new slogan and associated ad campaign was launched in television commercials during the 79th Academy Awards in late February 2007. After JCPenney sold off Eckerd in 2004, the locations that continued to operate as Eckerd, some locations in the southern U.S. were sold to CVS Corporation, still had JCPenney catalog centers inside the stores, which was a carryover from locations that were once Thrift Drug and continued to accept JCPenney credit cards. After Rite Aid finalized its acquisition of Eckerd in 2007, the catalog centers inside the soon-to-be converted stores permanently closed. Although as a result of the acquisition, Rite Aid now accepts JCPenney credit cards, even at Rite Aid locations that existed before the acquisition of Eckerd. In November 2007, the company launched a new public website, jcpenneybrands.com, which covers the company's private and exclusive brands and its branding strategy. In February 2008, the company launched the American Living brand, as developed by Ralph Lauren, across several product lines. The launch, which was accompanied by an ad campaign during the 80th Academy Awards, was the company's largest private brand launch. That summer, JCPenney also added a new brand to its home collection, Linden Street. The Linden Street brand features furniture, domestics, and home decor. Linden Street is sold exclusively in JCPenney stores and through its website. Other brands for juniors and young men were launched that summer. They included a relaunch of Le Tigre, along with Decree, and Fabulosity, a junior line of clothing by Kimora Lee Simmons. In July 2009, new additions were made to the JCPenney Young Men's department, including an expansion of its private brand Decree and the introduction of more skate/surf-oriented clothing, including Rusty, RS by Ryan Sheckler and Third Rail. In August, Albert Gonzalez's defense lawyer announced JCPenney was a victim of a computer hacker, although the company stated that no customer's credit card information had been stolen. That year, JCPenney reached an agreement with Seattle's Best Coffee to feature full-service cafes within leased departments inside JCPenney stores across the country. Seattle's Best Coffee is still expanding cafe locations within JCPenney locations across the country. 2010 to 2014, in 2010, Vornado Realty Trust acquired a 9.9% stake in JCPenney but sold it in 2013 for $13 per share. On January 24, 2011, JCPenney shut down its catalog business and 19 outlet stores. 7 additional stores and 2 call centers also closed. On February 12, 2011, the New York Times revealed that JCPenney was using spamdexing techniques to manipulate Google search rankings. Google reduced the company's visibility, and JCPenney fired its search engine consultant. In June 2011, Ron Johnson, former head of Apple's retail division, became JCPenney's CEO. That same year, the company sold its 15 remaining catalog outlets to SB Capital Group, converting them into JC's 5-star outlets. In December 2011, JCPenney purchased a 16.6% stake in Martha Stewart Living Omni Media, intending to create mini Martha Stewart shops in its stores by 2013. In early 2012, JCPenney implemented a new pricing strategy, replacing sales with everyday prices, but saw a 22% sales decline by mid-year. The company also experienced staff cuts, laying off 1,600 employees in January and 600 more in April 2012. Johnson was dismissed in April 2013 and replaced by former CEO Mike Ullman. In late 2013, JCPenney faced challenges in the stock market, issuing 84 million shares amid declining margins and a return to promotional pricing strategies. In January 2015, it was announced that JCPenney would close 39 underperforming stores nationwide and lay off 2,250 employees. That same year, the company announced that it was liquidating its The Foundry Big Tall Supply Company chain of standalone clothing stores. In January 2016, JCPenney announced plans to relaunch its business of selling major appliances to target a wave of millennials who are buying first-time homes. In February, JCPenney opened a support center in Bangalore, India. In January 2017, JCPenney sold its headquarters campus and surrounding land in Plano, Texas, to Drain Opportunity Partners as a leaseback sale to maintain operations at the location. The land has since been broken up and sold and developed. Space inside the headquarters building has been subleased. Part of this land was sold to where the current Toyota North America headquarters is now located. In February, JCPenney announced that it would shutter 2 distribution centers and up to 140 underperforming stores as it wrestled with disappointing sales. The company also planned to offer buyouts to roughly 6,000 employees. On March 17, JCPenney released a list of 138 locations that would close by the end of June. By closing stores and distribution facilities, JCPenney would redirect resources to help expand its store-in-store Sephora boutiques, and add Nike and Adidas boutiques, similar to what Macy's has done with Finish Line, Lids and LensCrafters. In an effort to capitalize on self-deprecating humor and improve its reputation, JCPenney collaborated with Nicole Richie and other designers to open a Jacques Penney pop-up shop in Manhattan during the 2017 holiday season. In 2018, the JCPenney at Plaza Palma Real in Humacao, Puerto Rico closed permanently, after Hurricane Maria devastated the store in September 2017. In May, JCPenney reported an adjusted loss of $69 million in the first quarter, even worse than Wall Street predicted, and lowered its projections for the year. Sales fell 4%, also missing estimates. Earlier in 2018, the company announced it would cut 360 jobs at its stores and corporate headquarters. The company lowered its earnings forecast for the year to 13 cents per share at best, and said it could lose as much as 7 cents. JCPenney finished the quarter with just $181 million in cash, down from $363 million a year ago. Much of the big decrease was because of a $190 billion debt replace. On May 22, JCPenney announced the resignation of their CEO, Marvin Ellison. On October 2, JCPenney announced former Joann Stores CEO Jill Soltau as their CEO, effective October 15. With the announcement, JCPenney's shares rose 9%. The company ranked 235 on the Fortune 500 list of the largest United States corporations by revenue. She has also brought new talent and has cleaned out inventory. On December 26, the stock price of JCPenney fell below $1 per share. This was the first time ever that shares had fallen below $1 in the 110-year history of the company, which started trading on the New York Stock Exchange in 1929. The stock fell 68% over the course of 2018, including a 30% drop in December 2018 alone. On February 6, 2019, JCPenney said it would stop selling major appliances on February 28, and that furniture would be limited to online in stores in Puerto Rico. On February 28, JCPenney announced its intent to close 27 stores in 2019, including 18 full-line department stores and 9 home and furniture stores. The closure announcement was paired with news that the retailer had suffered a 4% decline in same-store sales during the 2018 holiday quarter. On March 26, JCPenney announced the hiring of Bill Wofford as Chief Financial Officer. Wofford came to the company from the Vitamin Shop, where he had served as CFO since June 2018. On May 21, JCPenney announced that Sean Gensch would be the Chief Customer Officer, to take effect on June 3. Gensch comes from Sprouts Farmers Market, where he was their CCO. Also on May 21, JCPenney announced a net sales decline of 5.6% and a net loss of $154 million for its fiscal first quarter of 2019, which ended on May 5. On January 19, 2020, JCPenney announced plans to close 6 stores. On March 15, 2020, when businesses were ordered to temporarily close in many states, the chain closed all of its stores and furloughed its employees. JCPenney became the 4th major national retailer to file for bankruptcy in May 2020. Days earlier, it was reported in a regulatory filing that JCPenney would give bonuses totaling nearly $10 million to the company's senior managers, which included $4.5 million to CEO Jill Soltau. After 91 years, it was delisted from the New York Stock Exchange on May 18, 2020, and started trading over-the-counter the following business day. On March 18, JCPenney announced all retail stores would temporarily close in response to the global COVID-19 pandemic until April 2. On March 31, JCPenney announced an extension of the planned April 2 reopening, with a new date not possible to be determined at the time. On May 1, JCPenney announced a limited number of stores would reopen. On May 15, 2020, JCPenney filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy and announced that there would be an additional 242 store closings, blaming the COVID-19 pandemic for its action. By June 17, JCPenney reopened approximately 827 stores. Most of the 154 scheduled for permanent closure in 2020 were among those reopened, with final closing sales in progress. On June 22, JCPenney identified an additional 13 stores that would be permanently closed. On July 7, 2020, JCPenney announced that they would close 2 stores in New York City, one at the Manhattan Mall, which was closed immediately, and the Kings Plaza store in Brooklyn, which closed on Sunday, September 27, 2020. On December 17, 2020, JCPenney announced that they would close 15 additional stores in March 2021. As of June 2021, there have been a total of 175 store closures. On December 30, 2020, it was announced that Jill Soltau would step down as CEO of JCPenney, effective December 31, 2020. It is unclear whether she was fired or resigned. On January 1, 2021, Soltau was replaced by Simon Properties Chief Investment Officer, Stanley Shashua. On June 4, 2020, JCPenney released a list of 148 stores slated to close starting in late June 2020, with 11 additional store closures announced on June 22 and 2 additional stores on July 7, with the previously announced store closing locations remaining on hold pending further review, for a planned closing a total of 242 stores. Since the initial filing, rumors of potential buyers included Amazon, Sycamore Partners, and a group consisting of Authentic Brands, and mall owners Simon Property Group and Brookfield Properties. On July 8, JCPenney submitted their bankruptcy exit plan to existing lenders, and requested more time for negotiations. On July 31, 2020, it was announced that 21 stores, including the Mother Store in Kemmerer, Wyoming, would be auctioned off as part of the proceedings. On September 9, 2020, Brookfield Property Partners and Simon Property Group agreed to purchase JCPenney for about $800 million, including $300 million in cash and assuming $500 million of debt, which was later approved by the court on November 10, 2020. It had been established that once the company emerges from bankruptcy, it is poised to save nearly 60,000 jobs, according to various independent studies. The company was paying $2.45 million in monthly rent at the time it sold its headquarters offices in Plano, Texas in 2017. The location was permanently vacated in November 2020. In October 2021, the company opened 10 new shop-in-shop locations across the U.S., featuring a wide variety of brands, including indie and BIPOC brands, among them flagship partner 13 Loon. Mark Rosen became CEO in 2021. In April 2022, JCPenney's owners Simon and Brookfield offered $8.6 billion to purchase Kohl's. Sephora had already announced plans to contract exclusively with Kohl's by 2023, and had piloted Sephora inside Kohl's at select store locations. With this deal, Sephora would remain affiliated with, and under control of, the Simon and Brookfield retail portfolio, therefore superseding and annulling previous agreements for Sephora to leave JCPenney in favor of Kohl's. The company returned to its Plano, Texas, headquarters in July 2023. The reopened headquarters contains over 2,000 workers and occupies 3 floors. In January 2025, JCPenney announced it had partnered with fashion retailer Forever 21 to create a new company called Catalyst Brands. The merger also includes Brooks Brothers, Aeropostale, Lucky Brand, Nautica, and Eddie Bauer. Catalyst Brands is expected to open 1,800 store locations and hire 60,000 employees. The JCPenney spokesperson said the store closures are not related to the Catalyst Brands merger. On July 29, 2025, the all-cash sale of 119 JCPenney properties to an affiliate of Onyx Partners, Limited was announced by Copper Property CTL Pass-Through Trust on July 25. The companies expect a September 8 closing of the deal for the net lease stores, which pay rent and operating expenses. Property management company Newmark and Hilco Real Estate had been seeking buyers for these JCPenney locations for Copper Property, a trust formed by JCPenney's lenders as part of the retailer's reorganization after its 2020 bankruptcy filing. The buyer has now completed its due diligence, and its deposit under the agreement is non-refundable, Copper Property Trust said in a news release on July 25. Following JCPenney's bankruptcy, Copper Property took control of about 160 JCPenney locations and 6 distribution centers. Simon Property Group and Brookfield Asset Management Incorporated took over JCPenney operations and the remaining locations. The department store chain, which currently has about 650 stores, was one of the largest retailers to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. The money from the transaction will go to JCPenney creditors. After closing costs, between $928 million and $932 million will be distributed, Principal Financial Officer Larry Finger said on July 28 during a conference call discussing the transaction. Only time will tell if the company can survive the next 10 years.
JCPenney makes Mom's Day with Mother's Day gifts at savings. All dazzling 14-karat gold. All the cotton sweaters she loves so much. All sheer toes pantyhose. Every vinyl handbag's on sale too. Plus this touch control microwave. The JCPenney Mother's Day sale. We do it a lot nicer than anyone.
You're looking smarter than ever, JCPenney.
If you have any fond memories, please indicate it at the comments below. Thanks for watching, subscribe, and like.